Guys, here we are back with Teri Ippoliti, and she is a hypnotherapist, Reiki master, and she is a deep channeler. She has channeled various people, including Nahara, Lyesa, the Andromedans, the Syrians, the Mantis beings.
The Counselor of Nine.
Yeah, the Council of
Counselor
Nine.
of Three. Yes.
Yeah, and then a master who comes in.
Although I like him.
And so, when we call upon these energetic streams, she's at the point now that she's open and she's balanced. And so, what we're doing here is we're asking her how she got to the point where she is now. And so, as we rewind and we go back to Nahara, we got to talk about what led you to meeting Nahara. And so there had to be some events that led up to that particular point. And most channels have key points in their life that has catapulted them in directions. And of course, it's all about soul growth. So what led up to you meeting Nahara?
Wow, this is a really intense story. And actually, I feel Nahara in my heart right now. She's here. But we'll start with what happened was I did a workshop one time in Virginia. And the workshop was based on how I healed from the crime. It was a violent rape that I went through when I was 17, and how hypnosis and past life regression and everything that I was studying up to that point, how it was healing me. And at the end of the workshop, there was a man that came up and he hugged me and whispered in my ear and told me that there's a lot of good men out there, not to give up on that. And then all of a sudden I felt this energy come from him into my body. It just went right through my body, and it was like an orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was just melting in this guy's arms and not knowing why. So anyway, we went our separate ways, and I went home, and the next thing I know, I was going to bed at night, and I was starting to have these deep dreams. At first, I started feeling like a teenager. Like my skin felt soft, and I kept on playing with my skin, and I felt like warm and fuzzy, like a teenager in love, and things like that. And I kind of like brushed it aside at first, and then all of a sudden at night, I started realizing I was getting these deep dreams, but I felt like a veil was going over my face each time that I would go into this dream. And so basically it got more intense as we kept on going. So I kind of like communicated via email to this guy, telling him how I was feeling, not knowing why I was. He was just another soul connection that was helping me get through this. And so what happened was, after a while, those feelings were getting real intense, almost orgasmic, and I started hearing whispers in my ears in the middle of the night. Like I felt like there was three angels. I kind of figured they were three angels, and one was aggressive and assertive to get me past my ego. The other one would be soothing, like singing almost in my ear, and the other one was like more feminine. And so what was happening is that I didn't realize it, but they were busting open my chakras, and each time that they would bust open a chakra, I would go through a paranormal experience. But the paranormal experience would be related to some type of fear or issue that I either was going through in this lifetime, or a fear or an issue that I was going through in another lifetime, because that's where the veil would come in, and I would go into a trance, and then I would feel like and see like I was one time I was like a Viking or something, and I was a young child that where I watched these Vikings come through and murder my whole tribe, and then tear me away from my father's arms, and I watched my father get killed by them, and then I ended up having to live with them, and it was like, wow, where did this stuff come from? What is going on with me? And that's, I thought I was going crazy. And then it got more intense because, well, I think by the time it got to my sacral chakra, and this would happen like in a span of 3 months. This was going on in a span of 3 months. And by the time it got to the sacral chakra, this book that was on my shelf for months called The Wheels of Life, kind of like just bounced at me. It was like I was looking at it and felt like I had to read it. And then all of a sudden I started reading it, and it was all about the chakras, which I had no clue of what the chakras really were. I heard of them, but never really studied this stuff. And so what happened was I'm sitting there like going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I realized I was remembering. It's just something in me that I felt like I was remembering all this. Not learning it, but remembering it. And so by the time, the most interesting part was when it got to right around that Viking time. I think it was in my solar plexus and in my sacral. This is where Nahora came along. And all of a sudden I'm laying in bed and I'm asleep. And I actually wake up feeling like my face is expanding and my whole body is expanding. And automatically I hear myself out loud saying, who are you? And then all of a sudden, this beautiful, heavy set, that's why I was expanding. She was very heavy set. Indian woman came into my consciousness and started calling me beautiful names. She always called me by a flower. My lovely dandelion, or my lovely some type of herb or a flower, she would call me. And she told me in almost like poetry. And I have all this written down because I couldn't help but just write. It was like everything that was going on. And she told me about her life and what was going on in her tribe and how it was massacred and how she was considered the wise woman of that tribe. And that what she was to me was the wisdom that was to grow within me. And what she was doing was teaching me how to love myself unconditionally. So she came to me a lot in my automatic writing. And my automatic writing with Nahara was extremely beautiful because she would almost write in prose. She'd always start out with my beautiful flower or sunflower or whatever, and then it would go into all this information that I needed to hear at that time for any reason whatsoever. And so this was the introduction to her as I was going through the Kundalini, but she introduced herself to me.
And so the Kundalini experience that a lot of people talk about, you actually experienced this.
Yes.
And so how would you describe that maybe in basically a nutshell to the viewers that have either heard about it, read about it, or have never heard about it and never experienced it? What was it? What did you go through? What was the human experience? Like, this is 9 minutes, by the way, so we got another probably 5.
Okay. The experience of the Kundalini happens differently with everyone, and I've come to this understanding after going through the process. It is the busting open of all the chakras. We have these cone-like energy fields that are within our physical forms, and they are, to me, are language systems. And so each chakra was getting busted open, and each time a chakra would get busted open, it would represent a part of me. And so it was quite intense, and it was very orgasmic at the same time. And I, whether my consciousness brought it to me like they were angels helping me go through the process. But each time it would come and it would help me face myself in some way, face some type of fear, because I was still suffering from being a rape victim at the same time, even though I was older in years. And so something would come in, and I felt like I always was being protected and helped to get through this. So it was a very orgasmic experience, and I found out that I was going through what they call a rapid Kundalini experience, which is called the awakening. Okay, so it was awakening me to a higher consciousness, and even as I'm talking about it right now, I can actually still feel the process of it. And I have this all written down. The Indians would do this automatically, which can be dangerous. They would do it through yoga, and what it is that if you're not prepared for it, you could actually go nuts. And a lot of, even my own mother thought I was going schizophrenic, And then when I was teaching Tai Chi, I would talk about it, and one of my students came up and said, I would say how these voices would come in and talk to me, and I just tell them some of the experiences I was going through. And one person said, "You got to be careful what you say, because Jeffrey Dahmer also heard voices." so I was a little careful after that. But it's a very orgasmic feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can go through one chakra one lifetime at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Some people could go through maybe 3 chakras in one lifetime, and others may go through the whole chakra system in a whole lifetime. And in my case, it was an awakening. It was helping me to remember my mission on this earth.
How long was your process? Since it was rapid, was it within a month or a year?
It was about 3 months. 3 months of intense going to bed, and it seemed like it knew when to, because I was still working and doing my third dimensional stuff, raising kids and things like that, but it seemed to know the right appropriate time to come through.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it came up to the crown, I was working, taking care of an elderly man, and I felt that orgasmic feeling, and I knew to walk out of the room, but for some reason he was fine, and I walked out of the room, and then I think that's kind of like when the channeling might have started, because I could feel all this. I felt like there was a whole community of soul beings around me at that time when it ended. And then the hardest part was the dissension of it, because all of a sudden I felt like I was back on this earth.
Oh yeah.
It was that was quite extraordinary itself.
And
but this is where I met a lot of my guides, most mainly Nahora.
And so it was another walking angel or another human being that was in close proximity, which would be a male energy, the gentleman you talked about, that triggered this.
Yes.
And so this is your journey, but other people have had similar experiences.
Yes. When I started talking about it, or if there were people coming up and saying, "Oh God, I know what you're talking about. Like, I get things like that happening to me, but not as intense as you." And so people go through it. And of course now I realize everybody who needs to know about it, they find me for some reason now, because of the energy of that.
Nice. Okay, so we're coming up on 14, and again, I think what we'll do in the next video